Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, any special guests? And here we go. We all voted, right? Good, because that's in the closed chapter. What I'm gonna do today is, after my last speech, I went over my 10 years in the military. And I separated from the military because I could not train into what I really like to do, the computer. A little history, very brief. The INET computer was invented by J. Pepper Eckert and John Malt, I believe is how you pronounce it, at the University of Pennsylvania, and began construction in 1943 and was not completed until 1946. It occupied 1,800 square feet and had 18,000 vacuum tubes. And does anybody not know what a vacuum tube is? Okay, it's a little glass, take up a lot of space. So, what I'm going to start with, now before we get started, when you're dealing with the components on the PC, we wear a ground strap. It's simply a thing that goes to your wrist and you attach it to a common ground. My son, my 27-year-old, changed the heatsink on his processor, so I don't have one to show y'all. So my apologies on that. The computers have changed through the years. They started out back in the Apple, the little floppy drive and the monochrome screens. They were, I think, 13-inch screens. Then it went into the 386s. Then just about the time I got out of the military, I was learning DOS 2.0 and some programming. And then I got into the mechanical aspect. I love to tinker, tear things apart. Usually goes back together, okay? And the modern day PC is they've shrunk through the years. It used to be they were really big and bulky. Like the first laptop, they would fit inside of a big suitcase. And through the years, they've gotten smaller and smaller. They have, right now, the 8300s, which we use at Franchise Tax Board, the smaller ones that most all of us have, by HP, and we have the 24-inch HP monitors and the 19-inch, depending on what area you work under. And let's see, so I am going to start with what I call the motherboard. Now these parts are either defective or parts that have upgraded and are no longer usable. Usually I donate these to a charity and let them do what they want with the parts. This is an AMD processor. Now there's several parts on here. The motherboard is kind of like the mom of the house, so to speak. They keep everything working. The PC here, the CPU, this particular one is an AMD. There's many different types. The most common right now is AMD and Intel. And they're very competitive. The most recent Intel is the i7 processor. And these are defective. I'm going to pass it around, so don't worry about ESD. ESD is back to the ground strap. When you're working on these, a little tiny spark can destroy this video card. A little tiny spark can destroy my memory once I find it here. And I burned a few of these out doing that error. So ESD is very important when you work on computers. Other things is they're sharp, a lot of sharp edges. This is what they call the I/O port, where all your stuff goes in, your motherboard, your input and output is what the I/O is. This here is where the video card will go. That's what they call an AGP slot. This is a cheap AGP video card I put on my Linux server. That drops right in here when you assemble it. And this is just a generic 1 meg AGP video card. I'll go ahead and pass that around if anybody wants. Just remember sharp edges, use caution.
Oh, yeah, seen this before. Oh, what year period time was this?
That was roughly 3 years ago.
Okay.
That when that board came out. That was a cheap one, like an $89 special at Fry's Electronics.
Okay.
They're kind of like cars, depending on how much money you want to spend, is what you can do with them. I do a lot of online gaming, therefore I have the latest i7 product, the fastest memory, and the best video card. Of course, if my wallet agrees. Here's the memory. This is one that I fried because I didn't follow ESD procedures. This was also on my Linux server. I have a RAID 5 on that. It's DDR2, and it goes really deep. I wished I didn't have time constraints for the speech to go further in detail. And I brought this here, in case anybody's ever wondered what it looks like inside of a hard drive. This is a Mac store. It's a low budget, and in its day, it was the best. It was a 60 gig drive. But it only has one platter. So your cheaper drives only have one platter. And if you can see, it's a magnetic head. Whenever you shut it off, it's supposed to park it here at the center on the spindle. And then when it boots up, it does what it's got to do. Imagine a record player. And it goes back and forth, writes the data, reads the data. When you hit the power switch, it parks the head so no damage should occur. So here's the single platter.
So I see right on both sides.
That's, I think it's the IDE interface. On these drives, there's tons of technology is developed from IDE to the latest, which is SATA. So, and anybody have any questions or?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
For, wait a minute, oh, the thing that had a circle on it, I think you left it up there. That one. What is that called? It looks like a CD disc or something like that?
Yes, that's the disk
Yes,
itself, the
yeah.
hard drive part.
Oh.
That's what all your data gets written to and retrieved from. Kind of like a regular player, but it reads and writes.
So everything you do on a computer is on there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All of your workstations have one, but a higher capacity. FTB, they all are, I believe they're 420s or better. It's been a while since I took one apart.
Scott? So this
Stick it over here.
size here, computer, on that little motherboard, what would that equate to the size just a few years back,
That particular board,
as far as computing power?
as far as computing power, that would probably take up about the size of this table on an old-fashioned system.
Oh, wow.
Because it's all about Mario when he does his programming. The processor executes what he writes, or what we do on the IO, the keyboard. Because everything on the keyboard, we see as numbers and letters and stuff, and it all gets converted into numbers for that to decipher. And my apologies for on time. Yes, sir.
How did you fry this memory?
I was upgrading my, I have a Linux server. I do mainly because my wife is the kind of person, no pun intended to her, when she has Windows, that's a heat thing for that. She clicks on anything that says, click here, click yes, okay. And I'm constantly cleaning up viruses. And so what I did is I wiped the hard drive out and I put Kubuntu, KDE on there. And I set her permission so that she couldn't click all she wants, yes, but it won't do anything. So now I don't have to worry about viruses. And I have my RAID 5 in there. So everything's covered. We do a lot of pictures and movies and, you know, all the family stuff. And this got fried because I didn't have my strap on.
Oh, that thing around your wrist?
Yes, the
Okay.
strap that you hold before you handle the product.
Okay.
It's very important.
Yeah, on those trips, where would the ground go? Did you actually go to the ground plug or where?
Several places. If you have a workstation in a professional environment, you'll have the ground already set up on a workstation mat. Or plug it in, make sure it's off, and ground yourself with the chassis of the system.
Oh, okay.
Or I've also sat near a heat duct, if you have them in the floor. Anything that's metallic and grounded, you can grab yourself.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
We got the honor of evaluating a speech that I never thought I would enjoy. The PC, and he brings out this box, and we're in suspense. What's in that box? I'm sitting there, having a really hard time opening that box. I want to see what's in it. His opening engaged the audience. Did you vote? I wish he had ended up the speech with the same type of tie-in. Maybe you could have opened it with, go ask a 20-year-old, because that's how you concluded it, and that was really quite marvelous. So one of your objectives was to work on a strong opening and closing, and I thought you had a strong opening and a strong closing, but they didn't exactly meet each other in the middle. But you had a wonderful flow, and that was part of the process, was to transition, have a good body, have an outline, and transition from item to item, and I found that the transition's very smooth. You're a natural at this topic. I mean, this is something that, has anyone in here even seen some of those things?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew what I've heard the words, but I really enjoyed that. So his next thing that I really, really enjoyed was the humor. Whoever would have thought that listening to a speech on a PC could make people in the audience laugh? I loved that. I really liked that he had very minimal use of notes. I mean, I know you had an outline there and you followed it, but I didn't see a lot of looking down. On the other hand, I felt like you didn't make really great eye contact. We like you, so you can look at us and we won't bite you. I love the visuals. I thought that was just extraordinary. And passing them around, and we needed a little warning on the prickly bottoms on those things. It would have been a little better if you had not assumed that we knew what you were talking about. So in other words, there's a few abbreviations in there like AMD. Okay, I know what AMD is, but other people probably don't. Okay, so that would have been a good thing. And then things that I really liked was that you tailored it to the knowledge level of the audience. You didn't really assume that we knew what you were talking about. You had excellent visuals, good transitions, good humor. This is really good body language too, by the way. You were not tied to the podium. You were actually moving around and passing things out. I liked that. One thing I have as a question, I don't know if it's a good or a bad, is the subject of questions. This happened last week and this week. Without the questions, you met your time. With the questions, you went way over. Where do we stop the clock? I'm not sure about that, but it's something to consider. The problem with the whole question area was that people enjoyed your speech so much they couldn't stop asking questions. With that, thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to Mr. General Evaluator.